Welcome back to Nightly Nonsense, making some sense, hopefully out of some nonsense. Hey, we're in John chapter 8, going through the story of the woman caught in adultery. I say it every time, I'm going to say it again, my favorite story in the New Testament, realizing how practical this story is. Last time we talked about this idea of who do you have by the hair, right? Who are you dragging to Jesus? Tonight, I want to look at the story again, right? This woman is caught in the act of adultery, right? These men, these religious men, they drag this woman caught in the act of adultery to Jesus and unceremoniously drop her in front of Jesus, right? And then they say to her, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The Bible tells us, right? The Word tells us, the Old Testament tells us, the law tells us that she should be stoned. Passing judgment. Right? Here's what the law says. So my question tonight is super simple in nature, right? Now that you got that person, hopefully last night, this morning, today, you've thought about who do you have by the hair? And of course, all of us are going to do the Sunday school Christianese thing, and we're going to say, I don't have anybody by the hair, man. I love everybody perfectly. And probably you're a liar, and probably the truth is not in you. You just have different degrees, right? There is most definitely somebody that you're probably obsessed with, somebody that you think about all the time, that you can't wait till they get what they have coming to them, somebody that you wish was different, somebody that you've caught doing wrong things and you don't understand why they're getting away with these wrong things, right? Again, there are people that we have by the hair. We can't wait till they get what we think they deserve. Now, in this case, these men, they had no care about this woman, right? They didn't care at all about her and what was going on in this story. They're just trying to get at Jesus. You know, that's the way it works with us, right? There are lots of people that we don't care two diddly squats about, but we're out to get them, right? We want to make sure that they get what they have coming, right? Because we've missed out, because we had the same thing happen to us, and this was what our punishment was, and these people deserve the same thing. You can tell by my voice that I'm pretty passionate about this whole thing, right? Because I've been on both sides of this. I have been the person dragged, and I have been the person dragging, right? And these men, right, they're not at all concerned about the person they're dragging. The very first thing when we start talking about making some sense out of the nonsense around me is we have people, they don't know people, they've never met people, they don't care about people, but man, they want them to get what they have coming. This happens in politics all the time, at work all the time, in school all the time, at church all the time, at home all the time. Man, something happens, all of a sudden we don't care about the person that we're dragging around. Man, we drag them from person to person talking about them. We drag them in front of people at work. We drag their name through the mud and then back through the mud and then back through the mud again. We're constantly dragging people around as we destroy them because we think that we have a right to stone them, that we have a right. They've been caught in something that we've deemed wrong. Now, again, even if we're right, maybe you're right. Maybe this person is a terrible, rotten, awful person. But again, our Bible says that we need to first deal with ourselves before we start dragging other people around. You know what the problem is? Most of us, we think we have. We think we're good. We think we're okay. We've declared ourselves righteous. The Bible says that there's nobody righteous, no, not one. So you're not righteous, just for the record. Oh, you might be trying to be righteous in certain ways, in certain areas. But if you have somebody by the hair dragging them around, you're not righteous. You're not a righteous person. For the one person who is left still listening to me about this, right? Let me explain. That again, Paul does say we get to judge the fruit of people. We are to hold people accountable. All of these kind of things. But you are not righteous. Not in comparison to the person you're dragging around. In comparison to Jesus. you are not righteous in comparison to Jesus. So when you got that favorite politician you love to beat up, when you got that favorite pastor you love to beat up, your favorite boss you like to beat up, right, as you're sitting around the table destroying them, remember, you're not righteous in that moment. As a matter of fact, everybody around that table has the right to be dragging you around from that moment. Because you're slandering and you're defaming and you're destroying and you're not following biblical principles. Instead, you're just dragging somebody around wanting your pound of flesh. You want to beat them into submission. And quite frankly, you're at a point where you might be mad enough where you just want them to disappear. I just wish that they weren't around anymore. We'd be better off without this person. I'd be really, really careful with this whole dragging people around thing. You might have a right, according to the law, to stone somebody. There it is, right there. The one was caught in adultery? Absolutely right. The law said stone her. You might have somebody and you might have a right. But what you do with that right, how you handle that right. Again, we love this concept of, I'm going to forgive you, but I also want you to go to jail for life. I'm going to forgive you, but I also want you to be removed from your positions. I also want this to happen to you. We walk around and tell people how we've forgiven people, but at the same time being glad that they got what they had coming. If you don't think I'm right, pay attention to people who, when they have something against somebody and they say they've forgiven, what happens when that person doesn't get fired, doesn't lose their position, what happens when there is no seemingly discipline or punishment for what is happening? Real forgiveness should never want somebody to be punished. Real forgiveness should not even want somebody, right, to get anything that they deserve. It doesn't mean that we don't want God to work, but when we start playing the game of discipline as punishment, I just want God to discipline you so that you can be more Christ-like. Meaning I want you to go to jail for the rest of your life and sit in a cell for the rest of your life because that's God's discipline. No, you really are just hiding. You want punishment. You're demanding that Jesus do something, right? When we drag people to Jesus, what is it that we're letting him do? What is it that we're asking him to do? Are we dragging people to the feet of Jesus and asking God to do something good with them? Or are we dragging them and demanding, hey, the law says this person should be stoned? So, hey, that's way more than enough to think about on this nightly nonsense. I want you to, again, read the story, John chapter 8. Think through, hey, what is it that God is trying to do with this story? What is it that we can learn from this story? Who do you have by the hair, right? And what are you doing as you drag them around? Tomorrow night, I want to look at who are you dragging them to? So join me, if you're still listening to this, as we dig a little bit deeper into some of the nonsense that's going around us. Make some sense out of it. Talk to you later.